How's it going, rednecks? The Turdle, it's let me down again. To be quite honest, that truck has been pretty dang good to me. Now you see, the time that I've owned this truck, it's been in the Detroit Gambler 500 in 2018. Right there.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun building, and I imagine this event's going to be pretty fun.
Tire came off the trailer. We're both tired, we're both worn out. And the Gobbler 500 in 2018. I drove it all winter. Then I took it to the Gambler 500 in 2019. Yeah, the only thing that I've broke on it, CV axle. Yeah, it's not supposed to do that. Water pump? Man, guys, I have to say, these things are pretty easy to install. And obviously all the things that were wrong when I bought it, so this truck's treated me pretty good so far. Now, on top of all that, me and my little buddy here, we ended up taking this thing to Silver Lake on Memorial Day weekend, and it actually surprised me. It made it all the way there, drove around the dunes, we made it all the way back home, and then this. Yeah, it's not supposed to do that. Looks like we're doing a wheel bearing. As badly as you want to take these brakes off and make it look like you've made a ton of progress, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove this axle nut. And I'll show you why here in a little second. It's a little trick I use. Alright, with the cotter pin out and the castle lock washer or nut off, what you're going to want to do is take some penetrating oil. Now, since I don't have somebody here to hold the brakes on this thing, what I do is I take a screwdriver and put it in the metal fins of the rotor, and I put my socket on with a breaker bar, and I break the nut loose. Well, rednecks, I may have just found the hardest part of this job. And there goes the funnest. Now with that pesky axle nut out of the way, we can get to removing our caliper and our caliper brake anchor. With the brake caliper and brake anchor off, now what we want to do is we want to pound the axle in so we can get more room to the wheel bearing bolts. So here's one up top here, here's one down on the bottom. Alright, and the last thing we got to do before we remove our wheel bearing is we need to undo all the clips for the ABS sensor and find out where it plugs in up here in the fender and unplug it. Alright, rednecks, with all that out of the way, you need to take your hammer and hammer the wheel bearing off, being careful of the wire to make sure you don't damage the ABS wire in case you need to reuse it, as well as making sure that the CV axle is moving in while this assembly is coming out. So, it's going to be a day or two before I can get back to this project. And if you're anything like me and live in town, the town tends to frown on immobile and uninsured vehicles. We have an insured vehicle. It's just immobile, so I got to try and make this thing look mobile. Let's see how I can do. Well, what do you guys say? That looks pretty mobile to me. Yeah, I don't think anybody will notice. Well, see you in a little bit. Alright, Rednecks, it's the next day, and I am here at LKQ, and I think I found our vehicle. I like this one because it has new brakes on it, new brake line. I'm guessing it had new pads on it, which tells me this vehicle is well taken care of. So hopefully this wheel bearing is good, and hopefully I can get that axle nut off without any heat, because you're not allowed to have some heat out here. So yeah, I have other options. We have an Escape here, 2 more Fords over here. So yeah, we'll try this one first. Wish me luck. Well, there we go, Rednecks. We got the wheel bearing off. I'm going to grab some of them bolts because some of them are in better shape than mine. And there's our wheel bearing. So, yeah, see you guys back at home. Gotta say, that's a first one for me. I don't know why that's cut up like that, but rather interesting. Alright, Rednecks, I'm back from LKQ, and I'd like to go over 3 things. One thing I'd like to address, the second thing was kind of interesting and annoying and surprising, and then the third thing was heartwarming. So let's get this thing ready, and I'll let you know what I'm talking about here in a little bit. Alright guys, about that trip, one thing I want to go over and I want to stress to you guys is at LKQ, safety. When you're underneath these vehicles at LKQ working on them, before I do anything, I inspect where they have their stands. Obviously they're not using safety stands. What they use are one rim mounted this way and another one welded upright. And then they got one here, one on the driver's side, and then usually 1 or 2 in the back. So I don't imagine they spend a whole lot of time making sure that it's secure. I have seen a few vehicles on their sides, a few leaning. So before I, or you for that matter, do any kind of work, make sure the vehicle is properly supported. Give it a good shake, and stay safe. I figured I'd take a quick second and show you what's going on with these wheel bearings. This is the one out of my truck, and this is the one out of LKQ. And the reason I believe this is going to be a good wheel bearing is it has a lot of drag to it, and it's smooth. It's not notchy, and it's not really hard like it's got water in it. It feels like it's greasy. This one, on the other hand, you can see how easily it moves. Not only that, if you look really close right here, you can see it moving. Yeah, that wheel bearing is shot. So let's get this one installed. Before we can install the wheel bearing in here, what I want to do is I want to get all of this crud out of here, because that could stop it from seating properly, and that would be no good. With the surface on the truck and the wheel bearing both cleaned up, and a hefty amount of anti-seize on my CV axle and on the inner part of the spindle, we can now slide the wheel bearing on. Before we bolt this wheel bearing on, I kind of want to go over why did I buy a wheel bearing from LKQ, and I want to share the heartwarming moment. First of all, the cheapest wheel bearing I could find online was $42. And I thought to myself, is that really something I want on my vehicle? A $42 wheel bearing that I'm going to be hours away and it's going to fail on me. So went online, found LKQ is $12 for a wheel bearing. Well, $12.21 to be exact. And that is a factory wheel bearing. This truck has 273,000 miles on it, and they were, last few were probably pretty hard on it, so I have a feeling this wheel bearing will be better than any $42, $41 wheel bearing that I could find. And then the heartwarming part is this wheel bearing didn't cost me $12. It cost me $21. The gentleman next to me was $10 short on his bill, and I thought, you know, I do all this for the fun of it. I try to do this truck, try to make these videos for you guys all on a budget because I love the challenge and I'm sure you guys like the content. And I figured here's a chance to share my love for vehicles for somebody else. So I paid the last little bit of their bill, no big deal, but I tell you what, it makes me feel good. So let's get this wheel bearing on. Alright, rednecks, so I've addressed the issue with safety and making sure that you guys are safe out there. I've gone over the heartwarming part, and I know, here we go, story time with Postal. The interesting thing, the annoying thing, and the shocking thing, other than my dog hitting the stand with his ball, again, come here Ratchy, I broke my snap-on ratchet, and for you Eagle Eye viewers, during that time lapse of me pulling the wheel bearing off at LKQ, I want to know if you actually seen the part where I broke that, but here it is. Yeah, I know, I was being stupid. And the annoying part is, all I had with me for backup was this Blue Point ratcheting wrench. I brought all my ratchet wrenches with me. I didn't have a spare ratchet, so as you've seen, what I did is I took a hammer and I used the caliper as a ratchet to break the last bolt loose and get it with what was left of this ratchet's life. So, Snap-on, if you're watching this tiny little channel, you owe me a ratchet. That's entertaining. A Craftsman ratchet with a Pittsburgh adapter hooked to a snap-on socket. That's our replacement. We got the house surrounded. Come out with your hands up.
I'm gonna call the real police for impersonating a police officer.
Well, there you have it, rednecks. The Turdle wheel bearing is fixed. And I gotta say, it's nice to be able to drive that thing again because I needed to use the trailer. I'm going to pick up another vehicle, so you'll see that in a later episode, I'm sure. As for the Turdle, hopefully it holds up. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and get back to work. Go. Alright, how you doing, huh? How you doing? Coming in to mess up my shot, huh? Yeah. Well, I tell you what, you can't. I'm gonna work with you. Alright guys,